Yeah, it's kind of unusual and a little bit fun to kick off the League One weekend recap by saying Reading 0, Birmingham 0 and Wycombe 0, Wigan 0 were matches that happened. Pretty rare, I reckon, for the top two to both draw 0-0. Can't remember the last time that happened. Birmingham were thwarted by some astounding, outstanding goal line blocks from Mbenge and Bindon. Can't work out which one I loved more. Mbenge, instinctively I love because I just love Mbenge. He's just one of those players that makes you fall in love with football. Just wants to do everything all the time at 1,000,000 miles an hour, which is quite a chaotic and fun trait for a centre-back. And in this instance, blocked a Dykes shot on the goal line, which was basically a tap-in. But Bindon's was underrated and actually sums up Bindon quite well. A looping header from Clara over the goalkeeper, and I think it was dropping into the far post. It had gone so high. Bindon tracked it all the way, leapt like a salmon and headed it over the crossbar, and genuinely kisses the crossbar. That's how high he jumps. I think, in scouting circles, it must be quite difficult to know definitively how high every player can jump. But clearly for centre-backs and strikers in particular, quite an important thing to know, right? What's your spring? Well, Bindon has shown to any scouts watching that he can jump so high, he can literally smash his nose on the crossbar. And I absolutely loved it. I think those two, Bindon and Mbenge, might be my favourite centre-back pairing in the whole of the EFL. Reading had a couple of chances of their own, nice saves from Allsop to keep Wing at bay, among others, and a 0-0 draw. There was no Stansfield for Birmingham. He was carried off in midweek against Bradford. Looked bad. Isn't that bad, thankfully. No bone or ligament damage, just a big old bang on the leg. So we expect him to be back in a couple of weeks. He's challenging for the Golden Boot, really, with Richard Kone. Now, he's been out for a couple of weeks, but he came back for Wycombe off the bench, but couldn't impact things as they drew 0-0 with Wigan. That's Wycombe's fourth draw in their last 6. 2 of them 0-0 draws at home to bottom half opposition. They're finding it a little bit harder than they were earlier on in the season, but they're still in a great position. Now, with the top 2 failing to win, George, could anyone beneath them capitalise on that? Yes, but only Wrexham. 4th, 5th and 6th, all lost. Wrexham did the business on Sunday at Mansfield.
What a weekend for Wrexham. I mean, it kind of fell perfectly where they witnessed the 2 teams above them, albeit Birmingham probably gone, but witnessed them drop points, saw the teams beneath them not win, and had the benefit of playing on Sunday, knowing that a win would be, they could see what it would do to the league table should they put it off, and put it off they did, and fully deservedly so. Going ahead really early within the 2 minutes, Callum McDonald putting through his own net for Mansfield, a pretty weird own goal where he was under limited pressure, and often when you see goals like this, they kind of just creep in, but he kind of buried it right in the middle of the goal, which is a strange one. But it was him who got the equaliser, redemption 14 minutes later, finishing off from close range to make it 1-1. But from then on, Wrexham were by far and away the better team in the game. Jay Rodriguez had already just missed a really good chance, basically an open play penalty that was saved on the line by the Mansfield defender. And Cleworth scored a brilliant goal. We're used to Max Cleworth scoring from set pieces. This was a strike from range and really well taken and well finished. And after that, after Wrexham had gone 2-1 up, Mansfield struggled to create anything of note to get back into the game. Mansfield obviously in a terrible run, winless in 10 now, fully dependent on teams at the bottom end of League One being bad in order to maintain their position outside of the relegation zone or battle at least. But for Wrexham, it's another really good bounce back win after a disappointing performance and result at home, and it feels like their away form is what's keeping them in this race right now, and they absolutely are in it because certainly Wycombe, as you say, not quite having their way as they were early on in their campaign. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Wrexham can force their way in. Sam Smith looked really lively, it's worth saying as well, leading the line for them alongside Rodriguez. So yeah, positive for Wrexham, a good result for them. Mansfield are spiralling.
Yeah, what is it about Mansfield under Clough that they can have chunks, not even streaks, like months and months at a time where they look absolutely immaculate on both ends of the pitch, and then months and months at a time where it goes completely the other way. El Arbitro Hugh Davis gave us some Max Cleworth stats, 22-year-old centre-back, now Wrexham's joint top scorer this season with 7 goals. He had 3 in his career before this season, including 1 in 73 league appearances for Wrexham. This season, it's 7 goals from 26 shots and 3.07 XG. Joint top scorer for the team, sat 3rd in League One, 22-year-old centre-back Max Cleworth. Cambridge beat Stockport 2-0. Now, there'll be some people who'll try and tell you that the FOTMob Corner segment of NTT20 Pod is something of a curse for teams. And there'll be some of those people will be Stockport County fans who would have enjoyed listening to last week's homage to their excellent side and then would have seen them lose 2-0 to a team in the relegation zone. But then there are also people, George, who believe in the spirit of the new manager bounce, that believe in the vibes of a returning manager coming back and galvanising the team and galvanising a fan base and making them win a football match that they would never have won last weekend. So you can choose which of those two completely random phenomena you believe in. Cambridge beat Stockport 2-0 either way. And Cambridge were big news in League One last week when they, out of nowhere, hired Neil Harris as their manager and Mark Bonner as the director of football. On this podcast last week, I chuckled knowingly and said, you can tell there's no leaks about the next Cambridge manager because the 2 favourites in the betting markets are their last 2 managers before Gary Monk, as if not only were they indeed hiring one of those 2 to be their manager, just to really take the biscuit, they hired the other one to be director of football. It's a remarkable situation, George Elek. Before I tell you about the game, tell me your snap thoughts on Harris the gaffer, Bonner the director of football, and what it means for Cambridge United.
I mean, it's certainly, I think, getting a manager of Neil Harris's ability, getting a manager who's just walked out of a championship side, having taken them to mid-table in the championship, doing a very good job, is a bit of a coup. I know a lot of Cambridge fans haven't forgiven Neil Harris for basically just walking out on the club when Millwall came calling. That'll change very, very quickly. It may have already changed after the result on Saturday, to be honest. In Mark Bonner, I think getting in a man who has a deep-rooted love and affinity to the club and the fan base, who's experienced some incredible time there, not only as a manager, but also in his work there previously. It felt like his time as manager of the club had come to an end, but there's no reason why his time with the club should. And having him overseeing football strategy and the direction the club goes, presumably long after Harris is there, whether that's 6 months or 2.5 years or however long else, has to be a good thing. A little bit worried that, in Mark Bonner, you've got a pretty green and experienced director of football coming up against a manager who I don't think we can call either of those things in terms of there being, in terms of where the power lies. It'll be probably quite difficult to maybe ensure that who's making allowances for who here. But maybe it's better that Mark Bonner can get used to a new role whilst having someone at the club who can already take charge on quite a lot of matters. So, yeah, pretty positive. I don't think that Saturday's result is necessarily going to change too much. I still expect that they'll probably get relegated and this will be a dream team for next season. However, if they are able to somehow keep them up, then there'll be some job to do so.
Yeah, still bottom of the table, 8 points from safety. I take your point, but I've got Harris and Millwall last season fresh in my mind. The results that he got taking over a team that looked like they'd never get a result ever again was quite remarkable. And you just watch the way they did it against Stockport, and it is reminiscent of that. He's just got huge new manager bounce energy. And what that means in reality and what's actually important is he is able to get teams defending their box better. That's something I think we can say pretty definitively. In this instance, he got them attacking not that often, but when they did, they seemed fairly clear about how they'd go about it. And that's quite impressive in just a day or two. Josh Stokes was the star. Now, Stokes is such an interesting player. He had the most incredible rise through non-league with AFC Sudbury into Aldershot Town. And then the first half of last season ripped it up in the National League and had, half the EFL after him. eventually signing for Bristol City. The second half of the season at Aldershot, perhaps understandably, was a little quieter. And he's been on loan at Cambridge this season. And he's probably their best player. And I think that just bodes really well. And it's bloody impressive for someone that had never played in the EFL before this season. And he kind of showed all aspects of his game here. He scored a header from a Liam Bennett cross. He's a fairly short, stocky guy, Stokes, but he's quite powerful physically. And I think he can handle himself on that front. Certainly not a luxury player. He's quite a busy bastard, basically. Gets around the pitch, harries, tackles, throws himself about. He likes receiving the ball under pressure. His second goal was a strike from outside the box that took a deflection and flew into the top corner. He had a great game against Stockport for Aldershot in the FA Cup. Would have been January last year, probably. And another great game against them here. And then it was just about defending for their lives. Blocks made, clearances off the line, keeper saves. Just had all the hallmarks of a fairly smashy and grabby, new manager bouncy 2-0 win against a top team at the level. Cambridge had a fantastic Saturday, and it's been a while since we've said that. Could say the same for Peterborough United, George. They beat Huddersfield Town 1-0 away from home. Their first away clean sheet of the season, and a ginormous result for them.
Huge result for them, and deservedly so. Like you look at the performance of Cambridge against Stockport, and you see the way the game went, and it's a smash and grab win. But for Peterborough, and I know that obviously coming into the season, people wouldn't have thought that Peterborough beating Huddersfield would have to be smash and grab, but the way that their form has been over the course of the season, it may have had to have been, but Peterborough were by far the better team here. Cipriani scored just after half time after Peterborough dominated the chances in the first half. Kind of Huddersfield came back into it to a degree, but Ricky J. Jones should have put them 2-0 down. And then Ibiolo went clear and just had his shot tipped around the post late on. So kind of in terms of who went closest, it was Peterborough. And with Kwame Poku seemingly on his way back, it feels like their flirtation with relegation might be brief, which would be a huge relief to Peterborough fans. With Huddersfield, we spoke in the Championship part about Oxford's lack of activity in certain areas in the transfer market being exposed due to situations, and it's hard. I mean, they're linked, but it's hard not to feel the same about Huddersfield, who made the decision to sell Miha Helik, fully in the knowledge that it dealt relatively well with his previous injury within the campaign, and now having sold a player who's been such a mainstay as a centre-back for them, they are now embroiled in this injury crisis at centre-back, and it was very, very obvious. The fact that Tom Lees is out currently, having got injury in midweek, and then Balka came into the side, who's been plagued with injuries, and he went off just before the goal was scored by Cipriano, with Ollie Turton, who is a right back or a right wing back, coming centre back. And when you look at the goal itself, Cipriano just basically walks into the middle of the area untracked and prods home. And given that the other starting centre back in Londwick is someone who is on loan at the club but has been out for a period of time, and according to Mike Duff, only had one training session coming into the game, it's a mess. And you look at their trip to Wigan in midweek, where Duff has confirmed that Longwick is the only fit centre-back, and he's obviously not completely fit. They had to take him off after an hour against Peterborough in order to manage his minutes, despite the fact they were 1-0 down and had no other centre-backs in their squad. It feels like a pretty disastrous turn of events now to have sold someone as reliable and colossus, really, for them in Helik, and then suddenly all the players you thought you had waiting in the wings all go injured.
And the thing to say is that it seemed really obvious heading into January that what they needed was firepower at the top of the pitch. And in going out and signing Dion Charles and signing Joe Taylor for cash money, which was presumably offset somewhat by selling Helik, an area of the pitch where they would have felt a little bit safer given the numbers that they had. And as you referred to, the fact that they had handled his absence previously, it just shows how difficult it can be, can't it? Because Charles has been poor, Taylor's been injured, and now they're not looking good at the top of the pitch or at the back.
And there's something in that where I think 75% fans think that signing strikers is the answer to January. And it just isn't that easy. And, I would have thought that signing Joe Taylor and Dion Charles, I'm sure everybody said it, was really impressive business in January. But it might just end up upsetting the balance, or they might not settle, or injuries, as you say. It's difficult. It's really difficult. Charles didn't start on Saturday, and you forget, Freddie Ladapo came off the bench for them. They've got so many strikers, so many forward options, and they've got one centre-back at the moment.
Bolton beat Leyton Orient by 2-1, and like all of their games so far under Steven Schumacher, just an incredibly stark game of two halves. This is weird. I can't wait to see how long this lasts for. Given Schumacher's time at Plymouth Argyle, it might last forever, where they were second best by miles in the first half at home to Orient, who had 8 shots, 2 on target, 2 big chances per FOTMOB, 1.25 XG to 0.02 for Bolton Wanderers. 1 shot from outside the box that was blocked at source. Leyton Orient go in 1-0 up, and it's an absolute mismatch. Kelman scoring a nice header, very brave for him to get on the end of it. Kelman, who's, he's plugging away. I think he's proving himself nicely, which I think he needed to do at this stage of his career. It's 15 goals in all competitions. He has played so many minutes that's 34 90s worth, so still not quite 1 in 2, but he works hard out of possession. He runs channels all day. He's not the perfect striker, Kelman, but I think he's doing really well, and I think it's worth pointing that out. And then the second half comes around, and Schumacher's he's just strode into the dressing room at half-time. He's given it 5 minutes of chat, and his team come out completely changed, completely inspired, turn it around and win 2-1. Collins setting up McAtee for the equaliser, Collins having come off the bench, and then Morley scoring a penalty, just a really silly foul by Ball to give away the penalty, and scored by Morley in the 75th minute. I am just a bit confused at Shuey coming in, playing 4-3-3, and ending up with Osei Tutu and Schern playing as wingers, with 2 fullbacks as well in Dakers, Cogley and Murphy playing too. Because Osei Tutu's a great dribbler, no doubt about that, but he's never been an attacker. He's never been a wide forward. And Schern, unless I don't know about his previous career, has gone from a tenacious left wing back with energy to right winger cutting off the right and trying to be a goal threat. It's not really working. So, he was very proactive with the changes. Matt, who's a Bolton fan, who is the excellent, very talented graphicsman that helps us make FOTMOB Corner, he was buzzing on Saturday, sent us a WhatsApp saying the difference between Everett and Shuey is unbelievable. We started 4-3-3. We went 4-4-2 at half-time. We finished with a back 5. The players looked capable in every system. I'd argue they didn't look that capable in the 4-3-3, but that's by the by. Aaron Collins winning flick-ons, playing as a deeper forward at the end. Never thought I'd see the day. So I say all that to say Shuey's approval rating is very high. Bolton have won 3 games in a row from behind. They're now level on points with 6th place Orient and 7th placed Charlton. It's a fascinating playoff picture, George, and Charlton doing themselves no harm with a comfy 3-0 win at home to Exeter.
Yeah, Charlton with a really dominant win over Exeter, to be honest. They won the game 3-0. The first coming from a really good Luke Berry delivery from wide from a set piece that was diverted in by Angus MacDonald. And then, as Nathan Jones' Charlton do when they're at their best, even at 1-0, they managed the game so well, completely dominant, kept Exeter at arm's length throughout. Croy Anderson probably should have put them 2-0 up before Tyrese Campbell did so. He was looking really lively off the left-hand side. And then Miles Leaburn with a brilliant third goal off the bench, kind of slaloming step-overs off that right-hand side. Kind of started that clip of Emil Heskey doing the worst step-overs of all time. I think this is what he had in his mind. This is what he wanted to do. He started wide on that right-hand side, step-overing his way before a really nice finish into the far corner. When he does that, given his size and his technical ability, the raw materials are there, as we've said so many times, for Leven to be just an incredibly exciting player. And there are loads of players like that. It does feel like Jones is maybe benefiting a little bit from players like Anderson and like Campbell and Leaburn being exposed to first-team football at a pretty young age, maybe when they weren't necessarily ready. At times last season, they were playing in sides under Holden and Appleton that were not particularly successful, and they were showing flashes of brilliance, but in part would have been culpable for the poor results. Whereas that experience probably means that their development is kind of on auto drive, and they're now looking really, really strong. And under a manager in Jones, we've seen in the past, at Luton certainly, you look at the likes of James Justin and Jack Stacey, is a track record of getting youth players, getting young players to perform at a very high level at a young age, and he's doing so at the moment. Concerns for Exeter, of course, their really poor league form continues. Currently 18th on 35 points, so just 3 points behind Burton, albeit Exeter have 2 games in hand on Burton. I still probably at this stage would expect Burton to finish above them, and that in itself should get you pretty concerned if you're an Exeter fan. They need to find a way to pick up some points pretty quick. Obviously, a big win for them against Cambridge last weekend, but that is the one bit of positivity in what's been a pretty difficult time.
Yeah, they've lost 13 of their last 22 in the league. Last 10 away games, 7 defeats, 1 draw, 2 wins. And in the next 4 games, Northampton at home, Reading away, Shrewsbury at home, Mansfield Town at home. 4 games that will surely decide Exeter's season. Or, that's probably dramatic. 4 games that will decide whether Exeter are genuinely scrapping for their lives in April, or whether they are thinking about the beach. And I bet there's some nice beaches a short drive away. Rotherham 0, Barnsley 1. This was a bad game. This was a bad game between 2 annoyingly bad teams. It's like surprisingly bad teams. Rotherham been bad all season. Barnsley just been bad for the last 2 months. And I don't think this necessarily suggests that they're suddenly good again. Their first win since the 4th of January. They need more, frankly. They're 7 points off the playoffs still. Adam Phillips scored a penalty past Dylan Phillips, but it was just a poor game overall. Keylor Dunn nipping in front of Phillips to win the penalties. Obviously, the big moment. Rotherham have won. Well, they did win 4 out of 6 in January, which had people thinking maybe Evans was getting a tune out of them. But it's 1 point in 5 February games. They are petering hard this season, and that's not what was meant to happen when Steve Evans was appointed. It was felt like you knew what you're going to get with Evans. You knew, particularly when he built a squad full of experienced players for the level, many of whom he'd worked with before, many of whom had won promotion at this level. It just seemed like a really solid way of building a squad to challenge at the top of this league. And it hasn't been the case. And it hasn't looked like being the case. And I'm somewhat concerned for the next few years of Rotherham United, to be honest, because when you hire Steve Evans and you allow him to build a squad like he's built, you are making a bit of a deal with the devil to prioritise short-term jumping for promotion rather than building something, rather than cutting your cloth and being sensible and planning long-term. And they haven't got anywhere near to achieving what they were meant to achieve. And now I wonder what the next couple of years looks like. I'm pretty concerned about it, to be honest with you. Blackpool finally won at home under Steve Bruce. They beat Crawley 3-1.
And what a way to do it as well. Going 2-0 up, a couple of nice taken goals from Niall Ennis before Kamari Doyle, who continues to impress with a relatively easy one here. Just after half an hour after Ashley Fletcher had been sent off for a very weird kind of off-ball tussle. It was kind of a wrestling body slam, and then it seemed like they both lay on the floor afterwards for about a minute entwined. We couldn't really see properly what happened, but anyway, he was given his marching orders. And from there, as you'd expect, Crawley, who are such a good attacking side, carved out quite a few chances, but were unable to break, were unable to find the breakthrough before a very late penalty, tucked away by Lee Evans, made the point safe. But 10 minutes or so to go. I want to give the referee some credit here, because Jordan Gabriel was played through. He, 1-on-1, he was kind of assaulted from behind as he was trying to get his shot off, but got his shot off. You know, he did it. And then the referee, he didn't score. And the referee was like, no, you know what? You were negatively impacted by that defender tugging you and tripping you and everything else, so I'm still going to give you the penalty, even though he got a shot away, which is what it should be, and we don't see it enough. So kudos to the ref. Even though I don't know why you sent off Ashley Fletcher. I liked what you did here.
Hey, we don't always make good decisions all the time. I know I don't. But
I'm
we
not
should celebrate.
Decision. I just couldn't see it, you know?
Right.
I just want to say refs get a lot of abuse. I don't know if you know that.
Do they?
So, yeah. So in this case, I just want to say, getting a shot off doesn't mean it's not a penalty, because he probably would have done a better shot had he not been being grappled. That's all I want to say.
I actually think it's incredibly normal the way people talk about and talk to referees. I think it's incredibly normal human behaviour and completely acceptable and not at all absolutely insane. Shrews lost 1-0 to Stevenage. This is the old no shots on target but still win the game 1-0. An own goal from Aaron Pierre, bit of a comedy own goal. They're trying to punch a ball through the lines into the box, and Pierre sticks his leg out to stop it reaching its target and just catches it perfectly and finds the bottom corner. Kind of sums up what was quite a poor game. Shrewsbury with two major opportunities. Lloyd streaking clear in the first half, beating the keeper with his shot, bouncing back off the post. And in the second half, a Biggins volley from the edge of the box hit the post as well. But it's 3 defeats in a row for Shrews. Safety 7 points away, a little bit of momentum lost there. There's still time. There's still time if they can build another run, but it's running out pretty quickly. Obviously, Peterborough did themselves a huge favour with that victory. And George, it's just as well, because if they hadn't won, Peterborough would have been in the bottom 4 as we record, because Burton, Albion, can't stop, won't stop winning.
Yeah, Burton with another ridiculous win. A 1-0 win thanks to a late goal from Charlie Webster. It's interesting this, because it feels like Burton have moved quite quickly away from the very idealistic strategy from last summer, where they brought in loads of players, quite a few of them young academy graduates. They hired an academy coach in Mark Robinson to oversee this young team to play kind of free-flowing football. It didn't really work. They brought in Gary Bowyer, who's someone who has achieved results at this level before. They played a much more kind of structured approach, and in January very much changed their recruitment tactic, and it's working really well. But in Charlie Webster, you've got the one guy, and I would say the shining light from the summer, someone who they recruited from Chelsea, who is an absolute whirlwind of energy in terms of, he never stops running. He's someone who is pressing work, and his energy kind of out of midfield enables Burton to still be pretty aggressive out of possession. But he's been someone who in this run of form under Bowyer has really stepped up. Despite him presumably coming to Burton in the first place because his old boss, Robinson, was the manager, he has been incredibly impressive. And it was a brilliant finish for the goal to make this 1-0 and to win the game for them. Lincoln had plenty of chances. Another very good refereeing decision to disallow a Lincoln goal, one that, again, you don't see that often, with a kind of tug, an off-the-ball tug that was seen. I can't remember who it was. I think it was McCarmer, just putting the defender down, and the referee spotting it and giving the disallowing the goal. Form kind of a bit bitty at the moment. Feels like Scabada's very... your facials during this whole bit has been incredible. It's like trying something new.
I'm just really loving Burton Albion at the moment. I'm just loving this. I'm feeling this. But I'm also wincing.
I don't think they're going to go down, which is fun.
I'm also wincing because you're right about Lincoln. I noticed they didn't even have a shot after the 57th minute. That is not ideal at home to Burton Albion. I want to point out with Burton, it's not just that they've beaten bad teams. In fact, it's not at all that they've beaten bad teams. Their 5 wins in their last 8 have come against 9th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 16th, and they've drawn against 10th and 11th. So they haven't played the top teams in the division, but they haven't just been beating the teams around them either. And I think that should give them huge confidence, as should the fact they're just playing really well in a system that makes sense with players that Gary Bowyer is getting the most out of. Northampton with a huge win, beating Bristol Rovers, the two teams who've been like two siblings fighting in the swimming pool, just trying to keep their heads above water and just trying to not get relegated. This was a big swing because Rovers were 1-0 up, probably the better side in the first hour as well. Scott Sinclair slotting them ahead. But there's something wrong with them. There's a defect in Bristol Rovers away from home where they've lost 10 of their last 12. I mean, it was a brave header, well directed from Dara Costello, his first goal for Northampton that equalised. And the winner, just a set piece, and there's a spare man in the back post. It goes over everyone's head and lands on the foot of Nesta Guinness Walker, who finishes at the back post, wins it for Cobblers, and just breathing room for then on a week where Posh won, on a week where Burton won. And I just continue to be so unimpressed and underwhelmed by Bristol Rovers. But we can finish the League One segment with a game, George. It's called
Careful.
Get Your Nesta Guinness Walker Name is the name of the game. It's the sequel to the very popular Get Your Russian Hepburn Murphy Name that we played on the betting show.
Mate, Russian missed a chance that Ian Rush would have put away. I can promise you that. A late header. Yeah, wouldn't have mattered.
Barros Millen would have scored. 2004. Barros Millen. Get Your Nesta Guinness Walker Name by
For those who don't know what we're talking about, we should say Ali lost the plot on the betting show on Thursday where we played this, because we're assuming some knowledge here. We know the audiences are different. We played a game and I said something and Ali
also tweeted the clip to hundreds of thousands.
Well, yeah, but look, mate, if you think that Twitter is the real world, then I have some news for you. Ali lost his mind. So if you want to hear Ali get the giggles to an alarming degree, then I think it's 24 minutes 50 on Thursday's pod.
George, get your Nesta Guinness Walker Name by combining your favourite noughties centre-back
Elliot.
with your pint and crisp order down the pub.
Landlord scratching. Elliot Landlord
Scratching. That is sensational.
I've met him. He doesn't sound very nice.
I am Kivu Hells Pringles.
Pringles.
Please comment on Spotify your Nesta Guinness Walker name, your favourite noughties defender with your food and drink order in the pub. Also, if you're listening to this on Spotify, please rate the podcast 5 stars so that our stats look really good. Thank you. That's the end of League One.